Hi everyone. So it keeps switching. You have to put spotlighted. Yes. I don't know what's happening. We're already on the last evening of talking about developing mindfulness and calm abiding, and the last three sessions we have used to speak about mindfulness. And after we have done the motivation and refuge, I'll give very little summary. And then today we're going to talk about how to develop shamatha. But before we start, maybe we can just take a couple of minutes to connect with ourselves, to find some peace of mind, letting go of whatever has kept us busy today. And then we take refuge together. And then we go into the teachings. So make sure that you sit comfortably, whether you're sitting on a chair or a couch or on the floor. All is good. The main thing is that your body, your mind are relaxed, are feeling comfortable. And we would like that relaxation to go together with a feeling of feeling awake. So the body is relaxed, and at the same time it is alert, it is mindful, it is very aware what is being said, what is happening in your mind, what is going on around you. And so then we just take a few minutes to let the mind settle down. Allowing the mind to fully arrive in the body. And when the mind is with the body, the mind is in the present moment. Because the body is always in the present moment. And so when you observe that your mind is still busy, what has been happening today or further away in the past, say to yourself, at the moment, while I'm listening, while I'm thinking, while I'm meditating on these teachings, is of no use to think about what already has happened. But if there's something important in that, I will come back to that after the class. And the same we can say about the mind that is captivated by what might happen in the future. And we sometimes believe that if I think enough about the future, then I have some control over what is going to happen. But if we check, then what we think about the future is never what the future is going to be, right? When the future presents itself, we see, oh yeah, that scenario, I hadn't thought about that one. And then remind yourself that the best way to prepare for the future is to be fully present here and now, so that you can develop all your qualities to the best of your ability here and now. which means that you will your best. You will be your best in your future. And then we set a good motivation. And a good motivation in Buddha Dharma always goes further than just our own benefit or just the happiness of this life. And so the best motivation that we can set is that what we're going to do tonight, may that become a cause for us to achieve full enlightenment, which means that we have developed our potential of wisdom and compassion fully, and that we have purified our mind from all the obscurations, all the impurities, so that we can be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. So whatever we learn is not just for ourselves, it's something that we share with the world where it is needed and where we can. And even if we cannot share it actively with anyone, just having the attitude that is willing to give away whatever you learn, to pass it. And so when we set a motivation in terms of I want to achieve enlightenment, then we need to rely upon the three jewels in order to do so. The Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, which are all represented by our Guru. And so to express that, we can take refuge together. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, and to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So in the last 3 weeks, we have been talking about mindfulness, and we started with talking about what mindfulness is in the world, and we saw that there is a whole diversity of meanings connected to mindfulness practice, and that mindfulness practice is often much more than just being mindful. Sometimes there is a development of compassion, sometimes there is a development of other qualities, being more aware, being more present. But I have the feeling, and it's maybe just me, that it is very much related to dealing with our stresses in life. How can we experience so much stress? There is anxiety, there is depression, there is this busy mind full of thoughts. How can I cope with that? And so mindfulness is used to lessen that busyness in the mind, lessen these stress reactions in the mind. That's how I see how mindfulness is often used in the world, right? And if we look into Tibetan Buddhism, then it has a very specific meaning, and it is referring to the function of the mind, which is the function of non-forgetfulness or remembrance. So it is one of the what we call the mental factors of the mind. And so then why do we develop mindfulness in Buddhism? The Buddha taught mindfulness with respect to many things. We can use mindfulness to become familiar with Buddha's teachings. And Buddha taught it specifically with respect to becoming mindful with the Four Noble Truths. He taught the four close placements of mindfulness. And he said that by closely placing oneself through mindfulness of the body, we engage in the truth of suffering. And by closely placing oneself through mindfulness of the feelings, we engage in the truth of the cause of suffering. By closely placing oneself through mindfulness of the mind, we engage in truth of cessation. And by closely placing oneself through mindfulness of phenomena, we engage in the truth of the path. So last time we went through them, and we went through a little bit the meaning of that. And we said that we use these four objects, the body, the feelings, the mind, and phenomena, in order to investigate the nature of these objects, in order to investigate the truth of these objects. For instance, if we look into the body, we have this feeling of permanence with respect to the body. So we reflect on the impermanent nature of the body. That is how the body exists, and due to our delusions, we do not perceive the body like that. So by being mindful of the impermanence of the body, we familiarize the mind with that nature. And that familiarization will help to counteract the grasping at the permanent nature, as if the body is permanent, our grasping at that. It will lessen that, and it will make the influence less. And that will help us to suffer less, right? When the body is changing, we know, body is going to change, right? But we can also investigate other parts of nature, in the sense that we can think about the selfless nature, we can think about the empty nature. And as we haven't had enough time to practice in the last 3 sessions, we're going to practice on the 10th and the 17th of December. There are 2 evenings that we're going to practice all these. We'll do as many as we can, right? Give you a little taste of what is it to practice on the impermanence of the body. What is it to look into the feelings? What do we do with that? What do we do with the delusions that arise in the mind? And so that will be very practical evenings, and not too much explanation, right? I'm going to assume that you know a little bit what we're going to look at and why. So then last week we also spoke about the obstacles that we have in developing mindfulness, which the main obstacle is our attachment to the sense pleasures. And then we also have an obstacle, which is aversion to, ourselves, being with ourselves, or aversion to, for instance, the object of meditation. Sometimes we feel bored, or we think, why is this? I'm not so entertained by this. So we have to help our mind to overcome that. Other obstacles are laziness and lethargy, and remorse and restlessness. And so today in the teaching, when we talk about shamatha, we will talk a little bit more about also the obstacles that arise with respect to developing shamatha or calm abiding. And these obstacles are very similar to the obstacles of when we practice mindfulness. Okay, everyone clear so far? Good. So today we're going to look into developing calm abiding. Calm abiding is also called shamatha and is also called shine. All cover exactly the same meaning. And the meaning of calm abiding is a single-pointed, a mind that is focused single-pointedly upon an object as long as it wishes to do so. So the mind of calm abiding can be for hours and hours and hours focused on one object without being distracted in any way, right? Kind of an incredible mind. So calm abiding is taught in Buddhism, but it is not unique to Buddhism. We also find it in other traditions. Practicing concentration, sometimes calm abiding is also referred to as, it's not the same, but sometimes people call it concentration. Concentration is practiced in many traditions because of the benefits that it has. So concentration is not something, or calm abiding is not something that is specific to Buddhism or that we only do within spiritual practice. We can use it in many, many ways. So the non-Buddhist practitioners, they, if I look, for instance, into the Hindu tradition or the yogic traditions, they develop calm abiding in order to develop a peaceful state of mind. They can see that the attachment that that is motivating our activities in this life, that disturbs the mind, and they find that unpleasant, because in relation to attachment, also aversion arises in the mind, which is even disturbing the mind more than attachment. So they strive for a peaceful state of mind. And after they have achieved calm abiding, and later I will explain how it all exactly is we place it within the stages that we can develop in the mind. After developing calm abiding, they continue developing more peaceful states of mind, more peaceful, more peaceful. And eventually they say they achieve liberation from I think they even call it also samsara. They achieve liberation, or they achieve enlightenment. What they achieve is they achieve the highest state that we can achieve within the concentrations and what we call the formless absorptions, where we make the mind just peaceful and focused upon one object. Once they have found their most subtle mind, which is most peaceful, they say, I'm liberated, I'm enlightened. Right? In Buddhism, we call that state not enlightenment or liberation. We say when you achieve that most peaceful state of mind, which we achieve through developing calm abiding, we are not liberated from samsara at all. We have found a temporary liberation, or a temporary liberation of all the delusions, because in the state of concentration, in the state of calm abiding, the coarse delusions cannot arise. It's impossible for them to arise. So due to making the mind focus single-pointedly, the delusions cannot arise in the mind. And when I perfect that quality of focusing single-pointedly, there are no delusions in my mind, and I can have the feeling I'm liberated from all the delusions. But Buddhism says only through the condition of your single-pointed concentration do you have a temporary liberation of your delusions, but it is not a true liberation, which means that when the conditions change and you lose your concentration, you lose your calm abiding, all the delusions will come back, because the seeds for the delusions are still in the mind. The seeds of karma are still in the mind. When karma arises, or when karma ripens and gives you an unpleasant experience, the delusions are there again. When we come out of calm abiding, we lose our calm abiding. We get attached again to the sense pleasures. So then we engage again in chasing whatever pleasure is in samsara. So so Buddhism says that's not the path to liberation, but it's a fantastic tool that we can use on the path to liberation. So in Buddhism, we use it in order to stabilize our realizations. And also in order to, for instance, realize the nature of reality, in order to realize emptiness, we can only do that when we combine our wisdom mind, the mind of special insight, when we combine that with calm abiding, and when we go into a union of calm abiding and special insight, only that mind is powerful enough to really penetrate the nature of reality in order to bring our conceptual realization of emptiness to a direct realization of emptiness. So we need it. We need it on the path. Also with calm abiding, some people, and there is a little debate about that. Do we need calm abiding in order to realize bodhicitta? Some people say yes, some people say no. You know, I don't know. I would think, my intellectual mind says yes, because when we have the mind of bodhicitta, we have an effortless wish in the mind to benefit all sentient beings, to achieve enlightenment in order to be able to benefit sentient beings. That wish comes spontaneously, that wish is effortlessly, that wish. And so in order to have that 24 hours a day, I think you need a mind that can focus on that 24 hours a day. So that's a mind of calm abiding. But there are others who say, no, only once we have bodhicitta and we enter the path of accumulation, then we need to really develop calm abiding. Calm abiding we can use, in itself, it is a very good quality to have, because for many reasons. One of the reasons is when we achieve calm abiding, then we achieve all kinds of qualities like clairvoyance, having some influence over the weather. Some people say you have control over the weather, and people who know the lamas, we know all that when there are events happening, when the lamas are there, rainbows appear, beautiful rains appear, sunshine is there, amazing clouds are in the sky, right? It's like, I don't know, sometimes, I don't know whether they come together, right? Whether there's a synchronicity or whether these things are created by the lamas. I don't know. But I say that there is some influence on the weather once we have developed calm abiding. And then also for all the realizations on the path, from the path of accumulation, what we in order to really develop these realizations, we need calm abiding. There is one state of calm abiding that we can achieve on the path of accumulation, which is that we directly receive teachings from the aspects of the Nirmanakaya, from the statues, for instance. We receive we can hear the teachings directly. That is due to the development of calm abiding. So many benefits developing calm abiding, but not an easy thing to do due to our obstacles, And so we go today through two methods of developing calm abiding, which are given in the text. One is the way as explained in the middle and extremes, which is a text from Maitreya. And the other one is explained in the Compendium of Knowledge and the Ornament for the Sutras. And so I wanted to start with the way of explaining in the middle and the extremes, which is the way of where we identify the 5 faults and counteract them with the 8 antidotes. And still, I don't know if you are sharing. Who's doing the screen sharing? One of you. If we can show the 5 faults and the 8 antidotes. You can't do it? It's not coming? Okay, I'll just start talking and then when it comes, it comes. So we are asked to look into our own mind and then see what is happening, when we engage in single-pointed concentration, which in the beginning we can see when we do mindfulness practice is similar than engaging in single-pointed concentration. We sit in the meditation posture and then we focus our mind. We look into our mind, we focus the mind on an object, whether that is the body or the breath or anything else. And so then things happen in our mind, right? So the 5 folds are called, the first fold is laziness. The second is that we forget the instructions. And I will explain more, right? The third one is that there is laxity and excitement when we practice the meditation. Then there is the fold of not applying the antidote to that laxity and excitement. And then eventually, which is late in the meditation practice, there is the fold of over applying the antidote. And so there are 8 folds in order to counteract these, there are 8 antidotes in order to counteract these folds. 4 antidotes are to counteract the first fold of laziness. 4 antidotes. And then for the next 4 folds, there is 1 antidote per fold. So I find this text quite easy to understand. And that's, oh my gosh, did that arrive at you like that? If you go a little bit down, oh yes, on the right side, there are 5 folds and 8 antidotes. So you can see that the fold of laziness, there is the 8 antidote of faith, aspiration, effort, and pliancy. And you will have these handouts there is a handout in the folder that you can download. So you will find that back. So what is laziness? Laziness is it's what is called an adverse condition when we start to develop calm abiding, right? So what is that adverse condition? For instance, it is the mind that says, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't have the capacity to do that." So that is the kind of what we would call in the West low self-esteem. I can't do that. I don't have that capacity. So, but in Buddhism, we say that is a type of laziness. This is what prevents you to engage in the practice. Yes. You want to keep that up? We want to keep that sheet up, or do people have that on their own computer?
A copy of it is in the chat for anybody who wants to use it.
Okay. Is that good enough for people? We'll try. So laziness is the voice that says, I can't do this, this is too difficult. Or laziness is also the voice that says, yeah, I think I can do it, but not today. Not today, not today's not a good day for that. I'll do it, or I'll do it later today, right? Sometimes we wake up and we think, oh, I need to do this and this, and we think, oh, not now, not now. I'll do it later, right? And then it is later, and then we say, oh, no, but still, I first need to do this and this. Then I'll do it later, and then it becomes evening, and then we think, oh, now I'm tired. I'll do it tomorrow, right? This is the mind of procrastination. I'm sure we all have that mind, right? But this is called in Buddhism laziness. And the third type of laziness is the mind that is busy with all kinds of samsaric activities, right? These people who are running around and who are so busy and have so many things to do, and they say, I cannot sit down just to watch my breath because I have so many things to do. Right? Sometimes that comes from a genuine motivation to benefit others, but often there is also this attachment. We like to engage in activities, right? It gives a good feeling if we have done this and this and this and this. It gives us the feeling that we are doing something, right? It's kind of overvalued in our society to do things, right? Just sitting and being is not so valued. But if you sit and you focus single pointedly and you develop your mind is very, very beneficial. And I think we need to value that a little bit more. Anyway, you can look into your own mind and say, what kind of laziness do I have? And see that that laziness is what prevents you from engaging in the practice in the first place. Right? That is the first fight that we need to do in order to get to our practice. So in order to counteract that laziness, we what completely counteracts the laziness is that when we develop pliancy of the body and the mind. Pliancy means that we enjoy engaging our mind in virtuous activities. Right. So I think, shall I develop calm abiding? And I say, yes, fantastic. I would love to develop that. Yeah, that is a mind. And then there is no obstacle to doing that. So that is the mind of pliancy that actually comes with having developed calm abiding, right? Nobody has that mind before we have developed calm abiding. So in order to develop that mind of pliancy, we need to have a faith in the good qualities that we can develop in dependence upon these practices. Right? So we contemplate all the goodness that is going to come from engaging in these practices. And then we look into our own life and we think, yeah, I would like to develop these qualities, having less delusions in the mind, having less thoughts in the mind, having more control over your mind, having a more clear mind, being more connected to the present moment, feeling more connected, therefore feeling less the misery of not being connected. You know, fantastic. I love to have these qualities. Yes, I develop some faith that I can do it. And then in dependence on that faith, I develop the aspiration to engage in the practice. And in dependence on that aspiration, I am willing to make the effort, right? Developing good qualities doesn't come from nothing, doesn't come from sitting in your chair, doesn't come from just thinking about it. We actually have to engage in it. And so we can only engage in it if we feel motivated enough. So we motivate ourselves by developing faith, thinking about the good qualities, and then having the aspiration that we want to develop these qualities in our mind. Then we are willing to put in the effort. And then in the dependence on the effort, eventually we will attain it and the pliancy arises in the body and the mind. So these are the 4 ways of counteracting the laziness. So the laziness is our main obstacle of even engaging in the practice, but we will also see that laziness while we are practicing, right? That laziness is not something that is gone the moment we can apply ourselves. Tomorrow, laziness is back in the mind. Day after tomorrow, laziness is back in the mind. We have to fight that battle again and again. And so then say that the laziness is overcome to engage today. I'm going to engage today in that practice. And I sit down and I think, what was it that I had to do? I forgot. Yeah. So that is the second mistake, is forgetting the instructions. And in order to counteract that tendency that we have, we develop already the mindfulness, right? We want to become mindful of the instructions. We want to have the strength of memory that remembers what we need to do. Forgetting the instructions, I don't know. When I started meditating, my first meditation course at Tushita, I remember we did this mindfulness meditations in the morning. I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything. I was just there. And the teacher gave us some instruction, and then we had to sit. And I think sometimes 20 minutes. And I remember many times that I thought, what am I doing here? What did he just say? I cannot remember. What did I have to focus on? Cannot remember. I mean, the instruction was gone in a minute. I had no idea. And he would not repeat the instruction, so I would be lost in in no time. So if you have that tendency, don't panic, don't think, oh, it's useless for me to learn it. No, we can learn it. We can keep reminding ourselves somehow, of the instruction. And also when we start developing mindfulness, it's nice to have maybe a teacher who keeps reminding you, putting again and again the instruction in your mind until it becomes a habit and your mind takes over the habit of reminding yourself, oh yeah, I need to focus on my breath. I need to focus on my breath, right? So we develop mindfulness or remembrance in order to counteract the tendency that we all have of forgetting the instructions. The instructions for practicing mindfulness are not too difficult, or also practicing calm abiding are not too difficult, but remembering them while you're doing it is not, it can be difficult. So then what do? We are practicing. So the instruction for mindfulness practice or for shamatha practice for developing calm abiding is you focus your mind on the object. You focus your mind on the object, and whether that is the body or the breath or the mind itself, or for instance, an image of the Buddha, you focus your mind on that. That's it, So, but it is a struggle to remember, And then what we are practicing, and then we lose the object, right? So we experience what we call laxity and excitement. Laxity is the mind that we lose the object because we go in a kind of a nice state of what they call sinking. Sometimes they call, when we have coarse laxity, then the mind is not at all clear. The mind goes into a state, sometimes it's called the mind is spacing out. It goes into a state where it feels fantastic, but it's not really aware of what is happening. It is also not a sharp mind. The mind is also not a clear mind. It's a kind of a dull mind. So that is laxity that we need to recognize as a fault. That is not, although the mind can feel very stable, but that's not the way to calm abiding. When we want to develop calm abiding, we want to have a mind that is fully awake, that is clear, that is sharp, not a mind that becomes dull and too loose. Sometimes they call the mind too loose. So there is a coarse laxity and there is a subtle laxity. The subtle laxity is a mind that is more clear than the mind of the coarse laxity, and it's also quite stable, but it is not tight enough. It is not alert enough. Sometimes people mistake that mind for having achieved calm abiding. They are in a state of subtle laxity where they have a good concentration, the mind is stable, but not tight enough. And then they say, I have achieved calm abiding. Apparently, there was a meditator here in Dharamsala who told his students, I have achieved that. So they went to His Holiness to check. And His Holiness said, no, this is subtle laxity. You have to go back to your meditation and start again. You have to address that state of mind. So that's the laxity. Then the opposite of that is excitement. Excitement is the mind that gets distracted all the time to the objects of the six senses. It is distracted by our thoughts. It is distracted by our emotions. Right? You see there the third one, laxity and excitement at the actual time. And the antidote to both these qualities of mind is mental introspection. Sometimes it's called just introspection. Sometimes it's called alertness. And when we develop calm abiding, we develop two mental, I lost the word, two mental functions of the mind. The one is the introspection or the alertness. The other one is mindfulness. These two need to be developed. Mindfulness is the mind that is not forgetting the object. It is resting on the object. While introspection is the mind that is checking whether mindfulness is still doing its work or not. Am I still on the object? Am I still focused on the object? Am I remembering the object? And the moment I realize, oh no, I'm not, then introspection is the one who says, oh, get the mind back to the object. Right? So these two functions we mainly develop when we develop calm abiding. And we address with that the laxity and the excitement that arises when we engage in the practice. And so we are meditating, we are focused upon an object, so we have overcome the laziness that doesn't want to engage. We still haven't fully developed the mindfulness that remembers the object, so we lose the object. Sometimes the object disappears, right? In the beginning, the object is mainly disappearing, and sometimes we bring the mind back to the object. So in order to bring the mind back to the object, we have to apply the antidote. Right? When the mind is gone, we have to say, when I notice the mind is gone, I have to bring my mind back. And I will bring my mind back. Right? If I then say, oh, the mind is gone, but I quite like it when the mind is gone, then I have the fault of not applying the antidote, which is the fourth fault. So maybe you know that mind, you're meditating and suddenly the mind gets caught. Maybe there is a problem and suddenly you think, oh, there is this fantastic idea how I can resolve that problem, right? That is actually the mind that is not applying the antidote. When we practice mindfulness and we notice that the mind is wandering off to another object, we need to catch that mind and say, come back, right? The problem, even if good things arise that could help to find a solution for the problem, we have to postpone that till after the meditation. We never do that in the meditation. When we set out in the meditation that we're going to do this tonight, we're going to focus on the breath and only focus on the breath, then anything else that you're doing makes that you lose your meditation. Right? Even if it is a virtuous thought, even if you want to forgive your enemy, even if you're not doing that when you're practicing mindfulness of the breath. Right? It can be a distraction of your mind that finds it difficult to stay with the breath, right? There is a little obstacle in staying with the breath. Oh, so I'm going to forgive my enemies. Much more virtuous. Yeah, maybe true, much more virtuous. Maybe, I don't know. But not on that moment. The moment you do that, you lost your meditation, and then it's like you cannot say, oh, I had a fantastic meditation. No, you didn't. You didn't stick with the object. So to have a good meditation, you have to stick with the object, no matter what comes, no matter how difficult it is. That's the only thing you work on. For our Western mind, not that easy. No, we have all these ideas what we can do better. I'm just talking for me. So then so this is the fourth fold, not applying the antidote, and the fifth fold is over applying the antidote. So at a certain point, you have developed your concentration so well that the mind is focusing appointedly on the object, and it can stay there without any effort. But you have been habituating your mind with applying the antidotes, right? You apply mindfulness, introspection, and you're applying it at a point that actually you don't need it anymore. So the fifth fold is over applying the antidote. You keep applying while actually you already have achieved the state that you want to achieve and you can stay there without any effort. So there is no need to apply mindfulness and introspection. So then you have to stop doing that and place your mind what they call in equanimity. All right. So this is the method that you go, which is called applying the 8 applications as antidotes to eliminating the 5 faults. That is just one method that we find in the teachings. And if you want, you can achieve mindfulness. You can achieve single-pointed concentration or calm abiding just by using this instruction. This instruction is enough, right? So if you feel like enough for me, I can do it with that, great. But of course, Buddhism has many instructions. So we can also, there is also an other instruction that we find where we are told how we go through what is called the 9 stages of mental placement that are needed, that we need to go through before we can go to calm abiding. And so we can go through that, and that is depicted, and I'm sure that many of you know this picture. It is this picture where the elephant and the meditator, they go on the path. This picture. Have you seen that picture? So in Buddhism, especially hundreds of years ago, not many people could read and write. So what happened is that in order to remember instructions and remember teachings, there were the paintings, right? So when we have the normal Thangka paintings, the normal Thangka paintings have a lot of symbolic meaning in terms of realizing the path. And this picture is specially made in order to remember all the 9 stages that we go through in order to achieve calm abiding. And so the elephant represents our wild, untamed mind, right? And if you count, there are 9 elephants in the picture. So these are the 9 stages that we go through. And so the elephant is the untamed mind who is running like crazy, right? And we know that an elephant who is wild is very dangerous, can create a lot of harm. And similar, our mind, which is untamed, can cause a lot of harm to others, to ourselves. And so then there is a monk running behind the elephant. And the monk, that symbolizes us as meditators. Right? At the moment, we are trying to catch the mind, right? To keep the mind with us. But the mind is crazy. The mind is just running around. And so the monk is holding 2 tools. One is a rope, and that is what is called the rope of mindfulness. He tries to somehow tie the elephant, put the rope around his neck so that he can lead the elephant. In the same way, mindfulness helps us to keep the mind with us, to stay with the mind so that the mind becomes tamed. And he also is having a hook, and that is the hook of introspection, where we hit the elephant on the head and said, hey, stay here, don't go. Right? So these are 2 different tools that we have in the mind: mindfulness, introspection. They have different functions. They feel differently. That we need to develop both in order to tame the wild mind, the untamed mind. So the mind is, the elephant is black, which means that there are lots of delusions in the mind. And in front of the elephant is the monkey running. Right? And the monkey symbolizes our scattered mind, the mind that is everywhere, running towards the objects. And then the mind follows, So the monkey is the one that gets distracted, and then the elephant follows because the elephant is not tamed. So that is the beginning that we see. And then you see these fires along the way. The fires, they refer to the effort that we need to make in order to practice the mindfulness and the introspection. So in the beginning, the fires are very big. We need to make a lot of effort. But then the further we progress, the less effort we have to make in order to stay with the mind, in order to practice mindfulness and alertness, or mindfulness and introspection. So the fire refers to the effort And then there are, you see many sense objects. Don't go too fast, Michael. So if you go first a little bit more up, there is, I think down there, there is a sense object. So here are the fruits of, I should put it with these are the fruits, which are the objects of the taste. These are the symbols, the object of the ear. This is the mirror, the object of the visual consciousness. And if you go a little bit down to the picture, there are two more. Or the scarf is the object of touch. And then what is at the bottom of the object? There's nothing. No, there's nothing. What is the first object? Oh, here. Sorry. Up here, there is the conch with water, which is perfumed water, which is the object of the nose consciousness. So this is what distracts us on the way to developing calm abiding, right? The objects of the senses. And so then you see that when they go on the path, the monk comes closer and closer to the elephant, and eventually ties the elephant with the rope of mindfulness, and the elephant starts looking back to the monk, looking more back, and eventually the monk is the one who walks in front of the elephant, so you can see there is more and more control, and the mind is more and more willing to follow the instructions. In the beginning, the mind is like, no way, I'm going to go everywhere, right? But at a certain point, the mind starts to like being concentrated. The mind likes to follow the instructions that we give to the mind. And the mind becomes more and more, and the elephant becomes more and more white while we go on the path. So that shows that the delusions, they diminish more and more and more. Eventually, no delusions arise anymore, right? It's not that there are no delusions, that there are no seeds of the delusions anymore, but the delusions do not become manifest. They are not present in the mind. What else is there to see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the place in the cave where the monk has attained calm abiding. The elephant is completely tamed, laying down there. And then you can see that there is this rainbow. And this is the way up to, this is the ninth, what we call the ninth mental states. So we have 9 mental states that we go through. And then in order to achieve calm abiding, we need to go a little bit further. We need to make that concentration stronger and more refined until we have a physical and mental bliss arising in the mind. And only then do we achieve calm abiding. So this is the monk who has achieved calm abiding, or the meditator who has achieved calm abiding. And you can see that when you are there, you can also fly in the sky. Right? I forgot to say that. That's one of the qualities they say that comes with calm abiding. But then how do we use it in Buddhism? We use it in Buddhism in order to realize the nature of reality. Right? We're not just sitting on the elephant and having blissing out, but we want to use it to really cut through the delusions. And so we can see that with the last elephant, where the meditator is holding the sword of Manjushri, cutting through the delusions. Right? And that's what we eventually want to do with calm abiding. And so when you receive extensive instructions on this, then just by looking at the picture, you remember the whole path. And every time we remember the whole path, we are making imprints in our mind. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. This is where I want to go. This is where I'm going to go. This is what I want to practice. And so it can be very inspiring to have pictures like this in your house. There's one more little animal I forgot. Here, there is a little hare sitting on the elephant. Here is a little bit white. Here you see a rabbit. Here the rabbit is almost white, and then he disappears. So that rabbit symbolizes laxity, which occurs quite quickly in the meditation, can occur quite quickly, and we need to purify that in the first 5 states. All right, that's what we can say over on the picture, and then we can go through the stages, through the 9 mental states. But maybe I give you some time to ask questions if there are questions, because I notice that I'm rambling on. Sorry for that. Does anyone have a question? Scarlett.
Hello. So, thank you very much, Venerable. The picture was very helpful. My question is, so as we practice shamatha and calm abiding, how does emptiness, connect to that? Like, why do we? Why is there?
My blunt answer is not. Does not connect with that. But you can say a lot about that, right? Tell me a little bit more about your question.
I suppose, like, I'm learning about, bodhicitta and emptiness and love and compassion
Yes.
and just, Buddhism in a nutshell, like all these courses that are being offered. So when we do start to practice shamatha, how is that how does that help with emptiness? Like when one gets to a certain stage in the calm abiding, then without being a concept, they internalize it. So like every experience becomes in the mind, oh, I see the interconnectedness.
It's not complete. So the practice of calm abiding, there, I mean, what we do, we go to courses which are called shamatha retreat, right?
Mhm.
But I always think it's not really shamatha, right? So if you look into how is shamatha achieved, how is calm abiding achieved, if I'm serious about developing calm abiding, that comes kind of, if we look into the Lamrim, it comes just before we start developing the wisdom mind, right? So it is not something that we do in the beginning. We call it shamatha, but often what we do in the centers and in our home is we are practicing mindfulness. We are trying to focus the mind more so that there are less delusions in the mind. And we also maybe use that mindfulness to investigate the truth of the body and the truth of the mind and the feelings and to understand our mind better. But that's not what they do in the practice of shamatha. So if we think about if somebody is ready to start practicing shamatha, what kind of practice do they engage in? And there are different ways of doing it, but they say that if you look into the Lamrim, there is a huge amount of prerequisites that you need before you can even enter into the practice of developing calm abiding.
Mhm.
You need to find a good place. You need people who help you. You need food needs to be easily available. You need a quiet environment. You need people around you who support you. It is a huge list. When I received teachings on that, I thought, I don't even have one of these prerequisites, let alone thinking about me developing calm abiding. How can I do that? So
Mhm.
you collect that. And then when you engage in the practice of calm abiding, that's the only thing you do. You only focus your mind. You focus your mind on the object. And within the Gelugpa tradition, and I'm not sure about the other traditions in Tibetan Buddhism, but you focus your mind on a little Buddha image, which you visualize in front of you. That's all. That's your object. And that's your object during the whole time of developing shamatha or calm abiding. So you go in meditation and the whole day you practice that. And I'm not exactly sure how you build up your day and whether you practice 24 hours a day or whether you practice just in the dark and you do not come out. There are different ways that it is described, so I cannot give you a proper answer on that. But I do know that the only thing you do is you have sessions where you focus on that Buddha image that you have visualized in front of you on the level of your forehead, and you develop your calm abiding independence on that. And if you have all the prerequisites to engage in the practice, it will take you 5-6 months to develop that mind of calm abiding. Right? This is, I'm going to develop calm abiding, and I'm serious about really developing calm abiding. This is what you need to do. Right? So we use the word calm abiding often very, very differently. Right? So once you have developed calm abiding, I don't actually really understand. Yeah, anyway, why people would do that. So this is how the calm abiding is developed, right? So then we think about emptiness and how does developing calm abiding relate to emptiness? So emptiness is a very subtle object, right? We cannot see that with the eyes. We cannot see that with the sense organs. We need to develop our mental consciousness because we see emptiness with our mental consciousness. And even for the mental consciousness, it is a very, very, very subtle object. So we need to develop a very subtle mind. The mind of the desire realm, which is the mind that we have at the moment, is too coarse to see emptiness. We cannot. We need the mind of a higher realm. And the mind of calm abiding is actually the mind of a higher realm. So how do we develop emptiness? First, we need to develop a good understanding of emptiness, an intellectual understanding of emptiness. And in dependence on that intellectual understanding, we need to develop what is called an inferential cognition of emptiness. We need to create a valid conception of what emptiness means, right? The lack of inherent existence. Once we have that, then we combine that mind that has that inferential cognition together with calm abiding. And so we go into the mind of calm abiding, and then we investigate the nature of reality. We think about emptiness without losing the concentration. And so we bring these two forces together. And when they work together, they do something special in the mind, And so independence on bringing these two together, having the union of calm abiding and special insight. At a certain point, you can make that so strong that that conception that you have of emptiness falls away, and it's like you penetrate it, and then you can see emptiness directly without a conception, right? So your mental mind, your mental consciousness sees the object without having the image that we normally have in a mental mind, in a mental consciousness. That image drops away and we see it as it is. Yeah. And so you can only see emptiness as it is, independence upon the union of calm abiding and special insight. So calm abiding is said to be developed separately. And then you start applying that. And if we look into the progress on the path, then they say you develop calm abiding just before you enter into the path because you needed to develop bodhicitta, or you develop it just after you enter into the path. But it is a realization which is quite far, I think.
Wow.
Another way of, and this is like wow, looks like almost impossible.
Yes. Like I'm daydreaming.
I tell you something that my Geshe said in Chenrezig Institute, Geshe Tashit Sering. He said but then we practice Hais Yoga Tantra, right? Where you engage in the generation stage and in the completion stage. And then they say at a certain point, you develop calm abiding on the site. It just comes naturally. You don't even have to make effort to develop calm abiding when you engage in these practices, right? So it is not that this is the only way of achieving calm abiding, but it is the way that is explained in the sutra teachings.
It all sounds like fantasy. Like, I guess I have to continue to make aspirations to really meet people who have achieved what I'm practicing to, because it just seems so distant, so impossible.
Did you meet Lama Zopa Rinpoche?
No, I never did.
Oh. So we had there was a retreat at Kopan, and there were people talking about Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and they were talking about, for instance, Venerable Lhundup, who is at the moment in teaching in Australia and Adelaide. He was Lama Zopa's attendant for 3 years. And there was another person talking about attending Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and in the beginning of them, meeting with the Westerners, and they would make meals for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, have drinks for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He wouldn't touch any of that. Never. He wouldn't eat, he wouldn't drink, he would just meditate. But he would say, you have to bring me a cup of tea 2 o'clock in the morning. Every
Oh,
night. Every night. He would never touch that cup of tea.
did he ever eat? Is like,
He didn't. He didn't. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He didn't drink for years, right? And so at a certain point, he started eating and drinking again. Maybe he did that for us, to show us how to, because when we eat and drink, we do that under the influence of attachment, and we practice that attachment 3 times a day, right? So
oh, I understand.
taught us how to eat and drink without attachment,
Right,
by
right.
dedicating whatever we do to the benefit of sentient beings. But he didn't sleep, right? Maybe 1 hour a day, and that was it. And so, in order to be able to do that, you need to have a mind which is focused single pointedly, which is awake, which doesn't need the sleep, right? We need sleep because of our delusions. The more delusions we have in the mind, we are so tired at the end of the day, right? Not because of what we are doing, but because what is happening in the mind. And so the less delusions there are in the mind, the less sleep we need. And we can hear that from people who even go in Vipassana retreats, where you meditate so many hours a day, focus single pointedly. And at a certain point, the need for sleep is going. It's not there. You sleep 3 hours, 4 hours, and you're fit. You don't need any more than that. These people you can maybe find around you.
Yeah. I I feel like I'm just starting to, like, I've been really practicing shamatha for a very long time, but my problem is I stop, and then for a very long time I stop. So I know it has to be consistent, even if it's like 5 minutes. I know
Yes.
I know that's my issue, is that I'm not. And I think, like, look at all the time I've wasted. Like, I've been involved in Mahayana practice for about 10 years, and I feel like I'm nowhere. Like, I listen to a lot of talks, but I feel like I'm nowhere. I just wanted to share that today I finally understood emptiness. Like, I finally, like, listened to a Rinpoche, and it makes sense to me. I don't know if that just shows that, like, okay, there's something that's um
Never say, I didn't
happening in
do
my
anything.
mind. Was that?
You have been listening to the teachings for 10 years, and then you say nothing has happened.
Like,
I
all of a sudden today it just made sense. Like, I just went, wow. So,
But you
yeah,
needed all these 10 years to get here,
yeah.
right? So
Yep.
10 years ago, you didn't get that.
No, it was like so confusing, but now today I feel like I really understand just as a concept, not like what you're talking about, how it come up, not there, but just conceptually I understand it. I
But
feel.
that's quite quick if you do that in 10 years,
Yeah.
right? It's like the mind needs to ripen. Our mind is so deluded, so covered by delusions. The ideas that we have in our mind are so the opposite of how things truly are, you know? So then we listen to the teachings in order to familiarize with something that our mind is thinking in the opposite way. That
Hmm.
takes time. That takes time. We have to hear again and again and again and again, you know, again and again and again. And sometimes then you think, oh, now I think I got it, right? But then maybe 10 years later you think, oh, I totally didn't get that. Now I get it, right?
Yeah.
There are, so this is how we need to familiarize the mind with ideas that are opposite of how the mind thinks by itself, you know, under the influence of the delusions. And we need to take time for that. It cannot happen overnight. And so you listening for 10 years, I think, how amazing. How amazing. Okay, your mind is not ready to meditate, but you are listening. Fantastic. Rejoice in that. Every time you listen, you make imprints. Every time you listen, something is happening in your mind, even if you don't see the result in your daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
just
put that
couldn't.
down, please. Put a stick down that says,
Yeah.
I don't do enough. I should do more. I should do better. You know, you aspire to do differently, but you're not yet ready.
No, I finally understand. Like, I just couldn't understand why we keep making dedications and aspirations. And like, there was a monk that would teach my friend and I at her shop, a Rinpoche, sorry, and he always said, whatever you do, like, make aspirations and dedications. And I really didn't understand why. But today, just I guess my mind was ready for it because I was listening to a Rinpoche, and it just made sense. Making dedications, so clinging. We're not clinging and attaching. And I don't know how to explain it, but I understand. Like, it makes better sense to me.
Good, good, great. I
Venerable,
rejoice. I rejoice.
Venerable, I
And you
think
keep
David
thinking,
also had a question.
sorry?
David also had a question.
David also has a question. David.
Hi, Venerable. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm glad. Sorry, thank you. This is my first day at Tufton Norbuling, actually, so
Mhm.
pretty stoked. But thank you for this talk, and I just wanted to ask if you're going to teach a class on the prerequisites to Shamatha, because I feel like people actually they kind of just like jump into it without having, I guess, studied
Well,
or practiced.
I don't think people really, nobody. So you can look at where is shamatha practice in this world, right? And I only know very, very little. I don't think anyone thinks, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to practice shamatha. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And you will discover very, very soon. Um, but there is, for instance, Alan Wallace. I don't know if you have heard of him.
Mhm.
He he has somehow made calm abiding his thing, so he is trying to found lands with retreat huts where people can come to develop calm abiding. And he feels like if we would develop this quality in the mind, then everything else is just going to come naturally. But despite that, there has been so many years, people have been trying to do that. It's not that anyone has achieved calm abiding, as far as I know. Some people, they say they have arrived on the 6th or the 7th stage of calm abiding, but not yet on the 9th stage. Um, so um, I know a friend who we studied together. And then he felt like I'm going to develop calm abiding, So he went into a retreat. I think they went with two of them together. But calm abiding is such a refined state of mind. With our delusions, we have to do first so much cleaning up before even the mind is ready to go there. And so he thought he could do that. And after a couple of months, he had to come out of retreat because the mind was what we call had a lot of lung. So the mind works. mm the mind and the wind energies in the body, they go together. The mind kind of rides on the wind. So when we do something with the mind, it influences the body and the winds in the body. And when we do something with the body, it also influences the mind. And so he had such wind disturbance due to wanting to achieve that, for month and month and month. He had been suffering from that. So it is not really a practice that you say, oh, I'm going to develop that. You just cannot, But once you are seriously on the path, you might meet a teacher who says it's your time to develop calm abiding. Here is your retreat place. You go there. These places, they exist. And there are people who do put a lot of effort in developing that. But on our own, I would say let's stick with the mindfulness and just try to improve our concentration. That's already fantastic. So, David, I don't think you have to be worried about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And you can talk about the prerequisites, but if you have a Lam Rim book and you read through them, intellectually they're very easy. But if you read through them and you think, which one of them do I already have? You can see it's very, very difficult. Very difficult to get all that together. And the way that I read it is that for every prerequisite, I need a lot of merit. For instance, finding a good place to live, right? Sometimes we think we have a very good place, and then suddenly there is this neighbor who has this dog who is barking and who is disturbing our whole life, right? We don't have the merit to live in a peaceful place, right? To have the merit, to have all the conditions right is very difficult. We need to do a lot of good deeds before we are there.
Yeah, I'm literally just like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear myself talking and I think, oh my gosh, I don't want to discourage anyone. It's like listening to the teachings on how to develop calm abiding. I wish they are inspiring that this is possible with our mind, but it is not something that we can set out right now today. I'm going to develop that. It's not like that. In order to refine the mind far enough so that the mind actually can hold these kind of realizations, we need to do a lot of work before that. So we need to start where we are, but knowing that this is possible can be very inspiring. Listening to the stories about Lama Zopa Rinpoche and what is possible, I find very inspiring. It's like, oh my gosh, if he can do that, we can do that. Maybe not in this life, but we can prepare. It is possible to achieve that with the mind. And I don't know, when I grew up, nothing like that existed around me. So hearing about it can make that we think, oh, this is not my limited self. There is much more that can be developed if I do the right things. And right meaning, if I develop the causes and conditions for that, I will achieve that also in my mind. All right, David?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I talk a little bit about the 9 stages, which is a similar explanation on how to develop calm abiding, just from a slightly different angle. So you're not talking about what you want to develop in the mind, but how it looks like in the mind. So you go through the stages, the 9 stages of the elephant, right? That the elephant is going. So the first stage that we go through is called setting. So what we're going to do is the instruction is we set the mind in concentration. We set the mind on an object. We focus the mind on an object. So what is the object that we can use to achieve calm abiding? Yeah, here it is, setting the mind. So the middle column is how these stages are called. The object that we are using, according to Lama Tsongkhapa, we can use even on the breath, you can achieve calm abiding. And there is a discussion whether that is observing the breath by observing the rising and falling of your abdomen, or whether that is the breath at the nostrils. I think it is the breath at the nostrils and not on the body. The nostrils is also the body. Not on the coarse body, not on the movements of your abdomen, but on the sensations at your nostrils. But in the Gelugpa tradition, it is said, and maybe also in other traditions, I'm not 100% sure about that. So if you focus on your breath, you set out, I want to achieve calm abiding, focus upon the breath, and you don't achieve it, then they say, then what have you done? You have wasted your time. You have no merit at all. You have used the merit that you had to achieve calm abiding in order to focus, but you didn't achieve calm abiding. Now that merit is gone and you haven't created any new merit. So therefore, what they advise is to focus on a little Buddha image on the level of your forehead, and use that. So then even if you do not achieve calm abiding, at least you have the merit of having focused upon a virtuous object, right? So then, even if you do not achieve calm abiding, your time has not been lost. So this is what is advised. So when we start and we set the mind, then the mind in the beginning is more distracted than it is focused, right? And it might even be that when we start meditating, it looks like, oh my gosh, my mind is getting worse. I have so many thoughts in my mind. It's like I didn't have that many before. But it is said that we actually just notice that there are the thoughts in the mind. It's not that there are going to be more thoughts in the mind. We just notice them better. And so it looks in the beginning, the mind is getting worse. We can hardly keep the mind on the object. The mind is much more away from the object than on the object. But that is the first stage, So that's the beginning of the practice. It's like you go with an untrained body to the gym and you cannot lift anything, right? That's where we start. So, yeah, we have to start somewhere. We have to start where we are. So what we use in the beginning is what we say, we practice the power of hearing. So we try to recall what we have heard in the teachings. We try to recall the instructions that we have received in the teachings. So that is the power of hearing. And the way we need to engage with the object is that we have to engage quite forcefully. The attention that we focus on the object is quite forcefully. It's not that we can just relax the mind and focus, right? Because when we relax the mind is not focused. The mind is going everywhere. So in the beginning, you have to put a lot of effort to make that focus in the mind, to hold that object. So then, so you can recognize the stage that you are at, right, by going through these mental states. So the second stage is the continuous setting. So here, the mind, the concentration is still constantly interrupted by scattering. So your eyes are thinking about the future, or disturbing emotions are arising in the mind, such as anger. But at the same time, you can see that the thoughts are starting to take a rest. So you can stay a little bit longer on the object. Instead of 5 seconds, it's maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And the distraction becomes a little bit shorter. So the mind is wandering off, and somehow you recognize quicker that the mind has gone, and you can then bring the mind quicker back. So here we use the power of concentration. So we are constantly recalling the object of meditation, not so much the instruction, but the object of meditation. But the attention that we give, the mental engagement is still very forceful, you know. It's not a relaxing thing. You know, often we want to engage in mindfulness in order to relax, and then we have to focus. It's not really what we want to do. But if we want to make the start, we have to give forceful attention. All right. Then the third stage is called resetting. So we set the mind in meditation again and again. And in this stage, there is still scattering, which can be either virtuous or non-virtuous. So it can be, you know, virtuous when we have a virtuous object where we focus upon, and then the mind, or we maybe think about something virtuous, you know, that distracts you. But it can also non-virtuous be. It can be one of our delusions, you know, pride is coming up. Oh, look at me here. I'm in this great meditator. I can already hold my object for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But while we are in the third stage, we again recognize more quickly that the mind is wandering off. Mindfulness and introspection are both increasing. So that means that when we hold the mind on the object, we can stay a little bit longer. And when the mind is wandering off, we recognize it more quickly. And then also when we bring the mind back, you know, I don't know if you have noticed that in the beginning, when you start practices, the mind doesn't really want to come back. You know, the mind tries to convince you that it should go somewhere else. But here there's a willingness of the mind to come back. So these are the things that you can notice. These are things that show that you are progressing on the path. And the power that we are using is the power of mindfulness. So we keep recalling the object of meditation. And the mental engagement or the attention that we give is called interrupted attention. So sometimes the mind is a little bit focused and then that is interrupted. Then the mind is focused, then it is interrupted. So we don't have to constantly focus that strongly on the mind. Sometimes we can rest the mind. So then the fourth stage is called close setting. So here it says you don't really lose the object anymore, which means that somehow the object is in your mind. So you can still be distracted, but you somehow are aware that you are distracted. And then you bring the mind back. So while you are distracted, you remember the object and then you bring your mind back. And so that means that your mind has become more and more familiar with the object, which also means that the power of mindfulness has become stronger. So in resetting and close setting, we use that power of mindfulness. At this time, there is still laxity and excitement in the mind, but it is not there all the time. Right? So sometimes the mind is on the object. There is no laxity and excitement, which means that we can kind of relax into that. We don't have to hold the mind so tightly. And so then the fifth stage is called disciplining or taming, or it is also sometimes called controlling. And so here we try to counteract laxity. So while we are, you know, having the mind so focused on the object, it can be that while we are focused on the object, the focus loses its intensity and clarity. And that means that the mind somehow is withdrawing insight in a way that it becomes dull and lax. So in order to counteract that, what we try to do is to lift up the mind, right? We need to wake up the mind. We need to bring more light into the mind. So we can think about the good qualities of developing calm abiding. We can think about the joy. We can then generate joy and dependence upon the good qualities that are going to arise from calm abiding. We can also think about the good qualities of the Buddha that we are trying to develop. Anything that lifts up the mind, we use that to get us out of the dullness or the laxity that is arising in the mind. So in order to counteract that laxity, we need to tighten the mind, and therefore we use the power of introspection. At the same time, the attention that we give is still interrupted. Sometimes there is no laxity and excitement in the mind, then we can relax. And then sometimes excitement and laxity arises, then we have to more forcefully pay attention or engage with the object. The sixth stage is called pacifying. So in the fifth stage, we were tightening the concentration to counteract laxity. And so the mind has become a little bit too tight. And when the mind is too tight, then excitement arises. And so when that when that excitement arises, excitement has a lot to do with attachment. Like, I don't like it here anymore. I want to do something more pleasant, right? I want to get away from here. So when that subtle excitement occurs, we have to pacify any dislike that we are feeling for cultivating meditative stabilization. For instance, we think about the faults of being distracted. So the mind becomes more lax in the fifth stage. We need to tighten the mind in order to keep the mind awake and clear. Then because of that tightness, the mind gets more excited. The mind doesn't want to be there because it's too tight. The mind starts indulging in something else. Then we have to make it attractive again, what we are doing, right? So we can think about the good things that arise from developing this mind of concentration, but we can also think about the faults of being distracted. And so then the seventh stage is called thoroughly pacifying. And in this stage, the mental disturbances do not arise anymore in the sessions. They only arise in the breaks. So that means that within the session, disturbing emotions do not arise anymore, which is quite amazing, right? If we would have that kind of attainment. So we practice here the power of effort, which keeps the mind away from laxity and excitement. And it says that the mental engagement is still interrupted. But because they say there is still some subtle laxity and subtle excitement arising, but they are not a problem anymore in terms of disturbing your concentration on the object of meditation. And so then the eighth stage, we can start relaxing. So in the eighth stage, we can focus single-pointedly upon an object. And in the previous stages, not applying the antidote was a problem, but now applying the antidote becomes a problem. So that means that we are over-applying. We are applying the antidote, while in actuality it's not necessary anymore. So here we need to let go of applying the antidote. And it is said that we do that by setting the mind in a state of equanimity. And so we need to make effort. We use the power of effort in order not to apply the antidote. And now the mental intention is uninterrupted, which means that the mind is on the object all the time. And then the last stage is setting an equipoise. So here we achieve the mind of meditative equipoise, which is different from the mind of calm abiding. The mind of meditative equipoise is the mind of the ninth mental stage here. And so here we can put the mind effortlessly and naturally in equipoise on its object of observation for as long as we want. And I see that I put there the power of effort, but I should have said the power of familiarity. Making sure that we are not applying the antidote. And so now the mental attention that we give, the mental engagement is effortless. It is a spontaneous concentration. So that ninth mental stage is not yet calm abiding. After that ninth stage, we need to keep engaging in that single pointed concentration and make the mind a little bit more subtle than it is, you know. And then the moment we do that, there is going to be some physical flexibility arising in the mind, in the body, and there is a mental flexibility arising in the mind. And that comes with a lot of bliss. You know, this is the pliancy. Once that arises, both the physical and the mental pliancy, we achieve calm abiding. Calm abiding is not a mind of the desire realm, you know. I don't know how familiar you are with the way that Buddhism describes the different realms where sentient beings abide. But we, together with the animals, together with the hungry ghosts, together with the beings that we cannot see in terms of, you know, where there is suffering, but also the God realms. You know, in Buddhism we have God realms, the God realms of the desire realm. They're all part of what we call the desire realm. The reason why sentient beings are born there is out of this desire for the six sense pleasures. Right? This is where we abide in the moment. Our mind is quite coarse. Attachment is the main motivator. And we are mainly attached to the sense pleasures. Right? So then this is the desire realm. Then above that there is a realm which is called the form realm. And within the form realm there are beings who have a body of light and who make the mind more and more and more subtle. So these are God realms, but these are also the pure realms, you know, where bodhisattvas who have realized emptiness directly, where they go to after they pass on from this life. Where they receive teachings. So there are within that form realm, there are 4 levels of what we call concentrations. You know, so there are we can achieve 4 levels of concentration after we leave the desire realm, and these levels of concentrations, they go together with kind of places where sentient beings live. So some of these places are the pure realms. The pure realm is a state of mind, you know. But also the 4th concentration is a state of mind. The 2nd concentration is a state of mind that we can develop in this human body. And then if we refine the mind even more, we can enter into the formless realm. Beings who are born in the formless realm, they do not have a body. I mean, we have to say they have a kind of a body of wind, right? But they don't have a light body. The body is even the light is even too coarse to be able to live there. And within these form realms, there are again 4 levels, which we call formless concentrations or formless absorptions. The highest of them is called the peak of existence. And so we can be reborn in these levels, or as a human being, when we're on the path, we can develop the mind in a way that the mind can go to these levels. We are at the moment in the desire realm. In order to get out of the desire realm and go to the next realm, which is the level of where are the concentrations, the form realm, right? If we want to move into the form realm, we need to develop what is called the concentrations. Calm abiding is a preparation for the first concentration. So calm abiding is a mind that is not anymore of this desire realm. It is a mind that is of the form realm. So it is a more subtle mind. The mind of calm abiding doesn't have the coarse attachment anymore to sense pleasures, It's not there. There is just attachment to the blisses of samsara that we can experience independence upon these concentrations. In order to develop the mind that is helpful in the mind of calm abiding that we need in order to realize emptiness is the mind of it is a preparation for the first concentration. Then, if we are bodhisattvas and we say, I want to develop my mind even further than just calm abiding, I can develop the mind of the first concentration. So first I develop calm abiding, then I develop the mind of the first concentration by going through, I think these are 7 preparations or 9 preparations that you go through. So you bring the mind to a more subtle state, which is more happy. And then after some time, I realize, oh, this mind is more happy, but it is still kind of coarse. So I want to develop a more peaceful mind. So I develop the mind of the second concentration. And once I arrive there, after some time, I realize, oh, but there are minds that are even more peaceful. And so I keep by seeing that there are higher levels that are more peaceful and perceiving the level that I am at as more coarse, I start to develop these higher concentrations. And I can develop 4 levels of concentration. And after that, I can still perceive that that concentration is coarse. And I develop the mind of the formless realms. The first absorption of the formless realms, and then the second, the third, and the fourth. And as a bodhisattva, we like to go to all these levels of concentration and absorption. We like to be able to go there at will because there are sentient beings, right? Everywhere there are sentient beings. And if we want to help all sentient beings, we need to be able to go anywhere in the universe. So also to all these levels of concentrations and absorptions. Then also by going through these levels of concentration and absorption, we can make the mind very flexible. So what the Bodhisattva does is he trains the mind in going, for instance, from the first concentration, he jumps to the third concentration, and then jumps back to the second concentration, and then goes to the fourth concentration, and then back to the first. So he jumps so that he is very quick in first of all, the mind becomes very flexible, and with that flexibility you can use that to realize the nature of reality more quickly. They say actually that the mind of the fourth concentration is the best mind to realize emptiness, but you can do it with the mind of calm abiding, which is a preparation for the first concentration. And so the Bodhisattva uses these concentrations not as a goal in itself, like the yogis did, what I said in the beginning. They use that to just be in that peaceful place. But the Bodhisattva uses it in order to be able to develop the mind so that they can help sentient beings to the best of their ability. Yeah, so that's a little bit the path to calm abiding and how we can use calm abiding to attain certain qualities certain realizations on the path to enlightenment. But we can also use it as a practice in order to develop a flexibility and steadfastness of the mind. And we can also use it to be able to visit all the realms of existence in order to help all sentient beings. And now I'm going to stop. Just going to check this. Yeah. Do you have any questions? I hope I didn't confuse you. Scarlett.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you for making this teaching so digestible. Thank you so much for the words that you use that just really speak to me. My question is, how do you have access to these bodhisattvas? Like if they are, and I imagine that there are many in different rounds, I don't know, but how, like if we are, like I'm learning through this center is we make aspirations to be using bodhicitta to be a benefit of all sentient beings. May we rise to enlightenment. So like how does someone like myself who is just so like elementary, like infant, have access then to the realized beings? How does that work?
We can use our prayers, right? And they hear our prayers, and then they will make themselves available when the karma is there.
Like who? Like who? Like our deities like Lamatara, Avalokiteshvara, are they the ones we make prayers to?
We do, but these are fully enlightened beings. But you can also make prayers to the bodhisattvas, right? There are many beings who are having a higher state of mind and who are very happy to help sentient beings. I mean, in Christianity, we call them angels, right? There are many angels that can help you. In Christianity, you pray to the angels, please help me with this, help me with that. In the same way, there are many beings that we call bodhisattvas, which are on their way to developing the mind of enlightenment, or on the way to developing the state of full enlightenment, and they abide somewhere, right, where we cannot see it, but it doesn't mean they're not there. And so when we make prayers to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, whoever hears your prayers and you have a karmic connection with can then come and offer you help. And that can be in the form of I don't know, Buddhas work in many ways, no? For instance, you meet someone who brings you the answer, or you open a book and you find the answer, or something happens, in your life, and that suddenly brings something to you that you were looking for. So it is not that we need to go and find the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but it is more that from our side we make a connection and we ask for their help. Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. So the bodhisattvas are different from Lama, Tara, or Manjushri, or Avalokiteshvara. Like they're different.
So we have Buddhas and we have Bodhisattvas. And when you talk about, so normally we see Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Tara, all the other deities as fully enlightened beings. So they were Bodhisattvas, and they have walked the whole path, and they have developed their mind fully, removed all the obscurations until they became fully enlightened. And so they're not Bodhisattvas anymore. They're now
Okay.
Buddhas, right? In order to become a Buddha, we need to become first bodhisattvas. Bodhisattva are the beings that aspire to attain enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings,
Okay, I
right?
understand.
Then once we have realized that aspiration, we become Buddhas, right?
Yes, thank you.
I personally don't care so much whether a bodhisattva helps me or a Buddha. Right? They all have capacity which is far beyond what I have, right? So sometimes we have problems and we need something which is out of our capacity, right? Beyond what we can do. So
Yeah.
then we pray so that something can happen that we feel like we cannot make that happen, but maybe a holy being who has different qualities can make that happen. And holy beings who have that capacity, if we talk about bodhisattvas, these beings are on the path, so they have achieved calm abiding. They know emptiness. Maybe they haven't realized it fully, but they fully understand emptiness, and they have many qualities of mind like clairvoyance, clairhearance, being able to do all kinds of things that we cannot do, right? But they have control over their mind. And so we can call to these sentient beings and ask for their help, right? Anyone who has more qualities than us can help, right? In a situation that we cannot do anything. True?
Yes, yes, thank you. I always thought that Lama Tara was an emanation of us. Like when we do Vajrasattva practice,
Yeah.
and we visualize her in the form, like we can use like one of our teachers for them to manifest in her. Like I somehow I thought the manifestation of Lama Tara is us. Is our like Lama Tara is
Who is
me.
Lama Tara? You mean the
Green
Tara, the
Tara.
day
Yeah, the deity Tara. Yes, yes.
is us. We have the potential to become Tara, but we're not Tara yet,
Okay.
right? Tara is a fully enlightened being, and we are not yet fully enlightened beings, but we have the potential to become like that. So when we do visualizations, and when we whether we do that with Tara or we do that with Vajrasattva or other deities, and we visualize the deity above our head, and we visualize, for instance, white light coming, purifying our body and mind so that we may become like them, right? And then sometimes we visualize that that energy goes inside us and that it dissolves into us, and we can even visualize, now I am Tara, right? I
Yeah.
am one with Tara. But then when we come out of that meditation, does that mean that we are Tara in every moment? So this is a practice that we use in order to remind ourselves of the potential that we have. We remind ourselves on the capacity that we can develop in our own mind by becoming one with Tara. It's like, this is what you actually are. This is what you actually are, but we don't realize it. And so therefore the qualities that Tara has, we cannot use them because we have too many obscurations that we believe that we are not like that. Right? To
Wow.
develop the qualities of Tara, we have to remove all our obscurations. By visualizing that we are the same as Tara doesn't mean that we have removed all the obscurations. True? We can only remove the obscurations by developing the wisdom realizing emptiness.
I see.
But the visualization of we being Tara helps to remember that we have that capacity, that we have that potential, that we need to develop. Right? So I think doing that visualization has a different place in our practice than becoming it. Right? I can visualize I become it, and But does that mean that I can then, when I come out of that meditation, that I can identify with all the qualities of Tara and that I have removed all my obscurations? Did I receive all that wisdom while I was doing that meditation? Does it help me to be inspired to practice more? For sure. Does it help me to make my mind more subtle so that I can realize the more subtle aspects of the path? For sure. Right. But does it remove all my obscurations? I don't think so. So it is something that we can become, Scarlett. You get that?
Yes, totally. And David was requesting about preliminaries, and I just thought, is
He asked
what,
the prerequisites for calm abiding.
yeah, and is that when we do the Nudro practice? Because you were talking about like you just can't go
Very
in.
different. Very different.
Oh,
So you
okay.
about tantric practices, and
And
so then we need to do the preliminary practices in order to do more advanced practices. But what David was talking about is what are the prerequisites for calm abiding? For instance, before I can go somewhere to develop calm abiding, I need to make sure that my environment where I'm going to try to achieve calm abiding is suitable. So what does that environment mean? So there is a whole list of things that the environment needs to be in accordance with before it is suitable to be a place to develop calm abiding. So you need to look into the world. Where is a place like that? Right? Already not easy to find. Then you need, for instance, you're going to do a retreat for a period of time. You should never be ever worried that there is no food. You should be, so there must be food available. Somebody needs to be able to bring you the food. You need to be very, your attachments need to be very low, so you need to be very happy with simple meals for a long period of time with no distraction. There, of course, you have no internet, you have the pleasures of samsara, you want to leave them completely behind. There is no music, there is no things to see. You want to have the most boring environment where there is no distraction. But if we would be placed in an environment like that, our mind goes crazy, right? We cannot bear having no sense pleasures around us. We become like the drug addicts that you put somewhere in a place where there is no drugs, right? And they're going to do through the detox. This is what happens if you would put us in an environment that is suitable for calm abiding. We go nuts. Right? We run away, we can't bear it. So in order to prepare the mind so that I can deal with that, so that I'm actually happy to be with that, very difficult, right? We need to do already a lot of work. And so then if you read a Lamrim, there's a huge list of preliminaries in order that you need, not preliminaries, yes, prerequisites they're called, that you need to even be able to start doing your calm abiding practice in a way that you're going to be successful, right? You don't want to go into retreat and then, like my friend, after 2 months have to come out and you are disturbed for a long period of time because your mind couldn't handle it. You need to do a preparation and have all the things together so that you know that when I start doing this, I will be able to finish this successfully. Right? So that for that we need huge merit,
so what you're teaching us to do is just to watch our breath. Like it's shamatha, but it's not calm abiding. Is that what it is you're teaching?
Calm abiding and shamatha is the same, but often we say in when we advertise for practices, we're gonna do a shamatha day, right? We're gonna do a calm abiding retreat. But I always have to laugh when I start doing a shamatha retreat, and I think, how can I do shamatha retreat? Really, But I can teach the path, what we all need to develop in the mind, and we can make a start with practicing concentration, practicing mindfulness, practicing alertness, becoming aware what is all arising in the mind, trying to understand the mind, trying to see how we can counteract all these disturbing emotions that arise in the mind. How can we counteract the wrong perceptions that we have or the mistaken conceptions that we have about reality? And so we can use our practice for that, right? And these we all need to do in order to be able to even go to calm abiding.
Oh, I
Right?
understand. Okay.
So, and I can call that, I'm going to give calm abiding retreat, but I think, well, not really, you know.
Yeah, got it. I got it. Okay, this all makes sense.
So we use that in a popular way because it sounds so fantastic. But what you teach is you teach the principles of mindfulness, you know, and then you can, you know, have people focus like in the Vipassana retreat, and there is great effect when you do it. But it's not according to the book Real Shamatha.
Thank you, Venerable.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh my gosh, 8:30. I thought, oh, we have so much time today, 2 hours. It's gone already. More questions? So I'm going to leave the practice really for these days in December, if that's okay with you guys. Is that all right? Good. And so what I like to do in December is that we follow the 4 close placements of mindfulness, and we go through, we do a meditation on the impermanence of the body, maybe the coarse impermanence, then the more subtle impermanence, then maybe the cleansiness, then maybe, you know, we go through, and then we look into the feelings and how to stay with the feelings, or and then we see how the mind works, how we react to the feelings, and how we believe in these reactions, and how the mind looks like, and how we can counteract that, and this kind of things, you know, so that we use it to meditate on the nature of the body and the mind, and really understand what is going on there. So that, because I believe the more we understand, you know, the delusions cannot arise anymore when we really understand. When I can really, yeah, anyway, we'll do that in December. Okay. Sometimes I start talking and I feel like I open a box, and I should just stop opening boxes because I keep talking. Renouncing the worldly dharmas is pretty difficult. That is really, really the most difficult thing. And sometimes I think it's really the most important thing for us to do, David, this renouncing of the worldly dharmas. Because we believe so strong that that is the way to live life, you know. And so, I mean, we have perfected that in our time. And so to counteract that, there are so many difficulties that arise in doing that, you know. For instance, you go a completely different direction than everybody else, you know, and people think, why are you make choices like that? We all make a choice like that. You make the opposite choice. Why do you do that? So you need to really develop a really good, strong understanding of the worldly dharmas and see how they are our biggest obstacle in practicing dharma, in practicing purity of mind, in practicing qualities of mind. You know, our biggest obstacle. So when we look into the mind in December, we will also see some of that. You know, attachment and aversion is really on the basis of these worldly dharmas. And so when we look into feelings and how we react to feelings, attachment and aversion are there. And so then we can practice with that. All right. So then shall we
Yeah, thank
dedicate
you.
for today? Yes. I have something in my throat today. I'm sorry about that. So we can think that we dedicate all the merits, because although we might think, oh, but this is not for me, shamatha, calm abiding, too far away. But at the same time, it's there, and it is something that we can achieve with our mind. And even if we feel like I cannot practice it today, just knowing that it is there and that it is a possibility can be very inspiring and can help us to continue creating the causes and conditions that one day we might be able to achieve that. And so we can dedicate all the merits that we created tonight, tonight. It's morning here, sorry. All the merits that we have created tonight, we can dedicate that towards our future attainment of calm abiding, and that we might be able to keep looking at these states of mind, that we have the potential in our mind to develop these states of mind. And when we see them as a possibility, somehow it keeps our mind open. It gives hope. It gives, I don't know, maybe a joyous feeling in the mind that we are carrying that potential for developing these states of mind. And then we can dedicate together that due to these merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pracheka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please now bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Mudi's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed for peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for the fortunate disciples. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you all in December, where we can start practicing.